Well, there it is. 17 seconds. That's pretty good. Welcome, Descendants. In my new iteration of how to build a character, we're going over Luna. This will be how to build Luna. You can use my build. You can use your build. I recommend using the build that you make and have fun with. Luna is a buffing character or a damaging character, and her kit is tailored to such. Her passive skill is Inspiration Gauge, and you can have 14. You gain a gauge on note successes, and you lose a notch on note failures. You lose the whole gauge after you've been out of combat for 20 seconds. The Inspiration Gauge looks like this.
It's time to dance! Feel the vibe.
Whenever you activate her first ability, you activate her unique weapon. Her new unique weapon starts at 193% skill power modifier damage, which isn't bad, but you'll get a lot more damage out of buffing other people, and we'll go into it. Every time you score your DDR notes, the game has two different versions of notes. Whenever you activate one of your abilities on a note, you gain the inspirational gauge increase. Whenever you time your notes correctly with your gun, you gain perfect pitch. If you miss a note, for every note missed, you lose a stack of perfect pitch. You do not have to hit enemies to gain perfect pitch. So in downtimes when you can't shoot the monster or you can't buff your allies, you should definitely focus on getting perfect pitch stacks. Something you will mess up a lot on at first is running out of ammunition trying to get 25 stacks of perfect pitch. If you run out of unique weapon ammunition, your ability ends and you have to restart everything. You can see the skill power modifier decreasing over time. This is me not hitting my notes. Whenever Luna is on the exciting act, which will give her red notes, you gain a static of 20% skill power modifier bonuses. On everyone else, they gain a percentage score increase of 3.5% of your maximum MP. So whatever your maximum MP is after your external components and your modules and everything, you get 3.5% of that into your base skill power boost ratio. 1000 MP, which I don't think you can, it's impossible. You will get a 35% base skill power boost ratio, which is more than a Slayer set. On an enhanced performance, this happens instead. You get a 7.5%, and at 1000, that would be a 75% to the base skill power boost ratio, which is an insane number and heavily underrated. But the big ones we need to talk about are skill critical hit damage increase of 50% and a skill critical hit rate increase of 35%. Whenever you get a buff from a skill, it is applied to the base stats before the modules. So all of the modules on the people you are buffing multiply this number. You can have a maximum of 200% of critical hit damage and rate upon your Descendants. So if you're buffing people with these buffs right here, that 50% skill critical hit damage increase, since these are applied values, it takes 200% of whatever your skill critical hit damage is, and it adds that on top of the stack. So if they have 200% skill critical hit damage applied increase of this, and that does go for both. So everyone in your fire team, everyone in your party that's built for crit will walk away with 100% skill critical hit rates, and essentially an entire character worth of damage, depending on how your character is built. On to the second ability. If you're running out of MP because you have failed to time your notes correctly, you can activate the third ability. Every note timed correctly will replenish your MP and give you stacks. So if you're running out of MP in the battle, this is how you replenish it. You do not need MP recovery anywhere on Luna's build because it's built into Luna. And then you will get relaxing sound to your allies. Relaxing sound just gives straight 0.7% MP over 1 second. The enhanced version basically replenishes everyone's MP and reduces the resource cost by 56%. Why would you use this ability? You would use this ability in a unique situation where all of your party is out of MP and can't gain it back. However, gaining an enhanced note success with Luna is actually very quickly. The Cheerful Act is mainly used to gain your inspiration gauge. It also does give everyone a 10% cooldown decrease, and the enhanced version just gives 100% cooldown increase. This one's really kind of hard to test because in any situation where you want to do damage, these are going to be better. The only problem with this ability is that it is locked into a 45-second cooldown with no way to modify the cooldown structure. And the skills in the game do snapshot on cooldown, so when you activate them, if you activate your skill and then someone gives you a cooldown decrease, it doesn't cool down the skill. However, this proved kind of hard to test in damage testing. I'm just going off how the game works here, but you'll predominantly be using the exciting act. Onto how to play Luna. Nice load in into EXE. Whenever you're in the waiting room, as soon as you can, start popping off your skills. You want to activate B before Y, and in between of the cooldowns, you want to try to gain your stacks. When you have a B activated, you can activate Y 1 second after. You want to obtain as many stacks as possible before the enemy spawns, and then whenever he's in range, you can acquire your exciting performance and then buff all of your allies. And this will be around the 8-second mark inside of the Void Intercept, if nothing goes wrong. Alternatively, if you look to the left of the black buff, you will see stacks of ARCHE Concretion. These stacks of ARCHE Concretion increase my maximum MP. So if you are in the fight and you find yourself having your gauge maximized, another strategy you can do is you can activate the purple ability, and while you have an enhanced song playing, you get this big buff, and then you can have this buff at the same time. So currently, everyone around me would have an enhanced buff of both Cheerful Act and Exciting Act. This is really only used if your fight is dragging on, but if you were trying to one phase speed run, or if you just find yourself being able to do it, this is when you should do it. You won't always want to use B in live situations in pubs, and I'll explain why. And that is how to use Luna. Now on to the first build. The upside to Noise Surge is that it increases the damage Luna deals to enemies, turning her into a skill damage Descendant. If you build Luna for Noise Surge, she is a decent Descendant. Freyna does way more damage than Luna does, especially with the Luna in the party. So not too much changes with the first ability of Stage Presence on Noise Surge, just the cost of things. Everything else, however, does. So on Note Success, we have the same 10 activated. You can see on the left-hand side that we acquire stacks. If you shoot your gun, you get the stacks. And if you activate the skill, you also get the stacks. The skill activation costs MP. Whenever you change songs, these stacks remain, but they are on cooldown. So if you want to keep these stacks, shoot the gun, timing the notes. If I activate the skill, I still get another note. So if you want the skill buffs from all skills, you're going to have to play Dance Dance Revolution while cycling your skills back and forth. One of the worst ways to play Luna, unless you're just farming, is to try to be in this stage all the time. You will lose your stacks, you will lose a ton of damage doing so. Do not play that way, even though I've seen multiple people tell you to play that way. Unless you're farming. If you're farming and the enemies die regardless, it doesn't matter. But on Void Intercept bosses, this pulse attack and this attack don't do the same amount of damage. So don't sit there and try to pulse the Void Intercept boss. You will lose a ton of damage doing so. My recommendation for when you're playing Noise Surge is to, on the first and second ability, use those stacks specifically. Cycle back and forth between those stacks only. You can go try to acquire all three, which will give you the most damage, but I have found that I make a lot of mistakes. It takes so much focus to acquire this and keep this active all the time. So if you're going to be in a defense for an hour, you will lose your stacks if you try to keep all three at the same time. These stacks are skill critical hit rate, skill critical hit damage, and skill power modifier increase. This skill power modifier increase on cheerful songs gives you the least amount of damage. So develop your inspiration gauge, keep it up, and you will do the most amount of damage just slamming the beats. All skills recover your shield and your MP. So if you are going to build Luna for damage, she becomes a shield Descendant, because that's how Noise Surge works. Unfortunately, only increased shield is the Cerulean slot. if you're going to have amplification control for more range, which you can do. So this is going to be my noise surge build, and it really depends on what I'm going to go do. If I'm going to farm, anything really is fine. I will tell you what not to put on your build is any of the focus on mods. You don't need the skill cooldown. I have not leveled up Singular Master and Non-Attribute Master because I'm not going to use this particular thing ever for Void Intercept bossing. But whenever you're building for Void Intercept bossing and you don't want to sacrifice your slots, if you're willing to level those two up, they are better than other options because I have these slots dedicated. I just don't want to go spend my Kyber to level up these modules. And then the only thing left for my slot was Singular Specialist. I couldn't find a build online that had what I needed to say this is the most damage you can get out of a noise surge. The build that you should have for maximize noise surge, maximize damage noise surge, and you're going to want maximize skill and maximize power because the cooldowns don't matter. And if you don't mess up, these are the best modules. However, if you do mess up, you've ruined the entire game. You can only have a maximum of 250% range on Luna. So anything more than a skill expansion and an amplification control is overkill. Multi-talented. Why is multi-talented on here? Because all attribute damage for 30% is increased with the singular active. Multi-talented gives you a 30% skill power modifier on your singular skills. The only time the singular procs is whenever you fire a note. So this is a singular attack. And this is attack, a skill insight, a skill concentration. The other two critical hit modules is probably the most amount of damage that you're going to get out of noise surge reasonably. This is my farming set for noise surge. This is the build. On to the final build of Luna. We have Nimble Footsteps, which we'll go over. So Nimble Footsteps gives you an inspiration gauge of 14. Nimble Footsteps gives you Vivus. Vivus is sort of complicated. The duration of Vivus's stack is 18.7 seconds. So you have 18 seconds to keep the stack up or gain another stack. You can have a maximum of 20 stacks, and the required stacks are 2. The reason required stacks are there is for the skill range boost, which I'll go over. The movement speed boost ratio per stack is going to be 1%, so you get a movement speed bonus of 20%. You also gain a skill range boost ratio per required stack of 10%. The required stacks are 2%. I assume they just didn't have a better way to word this. So at 20 stacks of Vivus, you get a 100% skill range modifier. Your skills have a maximum of 250%, so the only thing you would need on a build is amplification control. Amplification control will give you 50% plus your 100% from your Vivus stacks will give you 250% range. Any amount of range that the game goes over, the percentage will show up on the skill, but you won't actually attain it. This has been tested last night on a stream with Ayahuasca Soup, link somewhere in the screen. You can catch him on Twitch if you want to check them out. We did a lot of testing last night on my Twitch channel, so Nimble Footsteps is obviously the way to go for buffing. I'll go over the maximum amount of buff you're getting out of Luna first. So we have maximum duration. This is just to increase the duration. Skill extension, duration. So we have duration twice here, and then I have ARCHE Concretion. What ARCHE Concretion does is whenever you use a skill or use an enhanced skill, you gain 1 to 10 stacks, maxing out at 30 stacks. At 30 stacks, you get a 33% bonus to your MP. So 33% of 541% is how much I'm buffing with this skill on an enhanced sound. So 7.5% of 33% plus 500. So at maximum stacks of ARCHE Concretion, I have 719 MP. I could take this up to 850 if I farmed better external components and sacrifice a little bit more on my build. So currently I am adding 0.53 power boost ratio to my allies, which is 2 Slayer sets per person. Insane. Just from MP. ARCHE Concretion shield conversion, and enlightenment is what I have. If I wanted to take off survivability, I could put more, but it's not great enough to do. 5 modules is essentially all you need. Duration, concretion, enlightenment, and MP is all you need with Nimble Footsteps to have the most amount of buff you can put on your character. I have then slotted for survivability. I have increased hit points, HP amplification, increased hit points, and then I have an increased defense, a toxic antibody, and a perfect anti-venom. You may say, what's with the increased defense? How damage works in the game, physical damage and elemental damage are separate. This will give me about 30% damage mitigation against physical damage only, and then about a 15% damage mitigation against all average damage if I'm factoring in damage from elemental. Then I have the antibody slot. The reason this slot is not slotted is for 2 reasons. The first reason is that all of the antibody slots are different symbols, so don't slot for them. And then I have the immunity modules. The immunity modules are all Almadine slots, and luckily, it's also an Almadine slot for a critical hit. So I have this slot for the immunity. With whatever capacity you have leveled up, you should be able to slot this. I keep these empty for things I might want on my farming build later. But more importantly is I can't really change these 2 slots if I want the maximum out of my buff build. For anyone playing Luna, the worst possible thing you can do as a Luna is die. You lose all your stacks and your skills are still on cooldown. Don't die as a Luna. That is the worst thing a support character can do for a party in any video game, actually. With this build, I do not get one shot with any of Gluttony's attacks unless they crit me. So to be honest with you, you could take off one of these and slot for a Syncytium, and that would give you some critical hit resistance against Gluttony. I have not done the math on to see if the immunity module or the Syncytium is a better call specifically on Gluttony, but that's just something I was thinking about last night. Now, what to do for when? Cue the blackboard. So why build buff Luna? We will go into the critical hit rate portion of Luna first. So these are on base. Your 200% modifier from modules that your party is probably equipping if they're skill damage descendants. During the enhanced version of the song, it is going to give them a 100% critical hit rate. If they have a 0% critical hit rate currently, the lowest amount of crit a Descendant can have is 5%. This makes it 40%. So the lowest amount of crit rate someone can have in the party is 40%. So the lowest amount of damage increase Luna can give to every Descendant inside of the party is 17%. This is the minimum amount of skill damage Luna can give to the party. If the party builds for crit, they have a 100% multiplier, 1.7 times minimum their base crit damage. So here we have Lepic. On the left is before Luna, and on the right is after Luna. So with base Lepic, if you're factoring in crit, 1.76 times your damage. If you have a Luna, 5 times your damage. This is, of course, average damage. This isn't a crit fished Lepic. Crit fishing is when someone loads into Pyromancer 19 times so that they can crit the Pyromancer with all shots of Lepic's ultimate. That's crit fishing. That happens on YouTube a lot. If you see a YouTube video where it's a speed run and 90% of the time they're critting, it's not because of the build, it's because they did that 30 times. One Luna in the party. So it's adding 4 non-crit Lepics for every Lepic inside of the fire team. Do you think you will ever come close to this kind of damage with Noise Surge? Impossible. This is why I have absolutely no damage on my build, because I don't need it. Because I'm giving it all to Lepic. Even if I put damage on my build, if I had a Luna and a Lepic, I would add a decimal point somewhere in here. Freyna's damage is over here. This isn't every Freyna build, but it's about 5 as well. However, the disparity from a Freyna with no Luna and a Freyna with a Luna is much higher then Lepic with no Luna, and Freyna with a Luna. Simply because you're doubling the crit chance increase, I would say. So Freyna has a base increase of 15% with modules, and Lepic has a base increase of 40% with modules. After Luna, both of these numbers become 100%. Luna is insane. The only problem with this, I explained up here, if the character is not built for crit and they have a base of 5%, they're going to walk away with a 40% crit chance. And this is Luna math, and why buff Luna is much more superior than Noise Surge Luna. The third ability on Luna is for cooldown. Now we'll talk about the issue with Luna. This is why she was given sort of two different kind of buffs. This first one gives you a cooldown decrease of 100%, but the game won't let you go any higher than 90. And this one, it gives you skill damage. So if you have a dedicated team inside of the first Descendant that you play with, and you want to be a dedicated Luna, you're gonna feel so strong. With Kyle's ultimate of 11,000, you can make one Kyle with a crit build feel like 3 Kyles. So if you have 3 Kyles on your fire team, you're adding 9 Kyles to the fire team just being Luna. This is only in skill power though. If you are Luna inside of a party with 3 Sharons, you are going to add 0 to the fire team. You'll actually be 0 because of your buff build. However, if you are a Luna with buff build, you finding randoms inside of the world chat would be quite easy. And you can just type in something like buff Luna seeking 3 Kyles, and you will find them. Or buff Luna seeking skill damage Descendants, and you will find them. If you are a streamer and you want to do stuff with your chat, do stuff like this. Well, there you go. Well, there it is. Nice. Yay. We've unlocked the mastery of farming the Molten Fortress. Well, there you go. 17 seconds. That's pretty good. So that was my Luna build. I'm sure I missed something because honestly, Luna is the most complex character to play in this game. Oh, right. What you are going to want maximum HP on all of your external components. I slotted 1 for defense because it prevented me from getting one shot against Gluttony. And you definitely want maximum MP on your sensor. In addition to HP, you want the elemental resistance for whichever external component you have. The elemental resistance plus the elemental resistance plus perfect anti-venom or crit resistance. Some people are going to say, hey, I still want to stack hit points. Go for it. I do not have the chill resistance on my sensor because it just won't drop. Like, it won't give me maximum MP plus chill resistance on a defense annihilation sensor. Very sad. And then try to have 2 pieces of annihilator for the skill duration. 5% isn't much, but I mean, if you're going to farm, you might as well farm. And the 2-piece on the bottom have HP, and the Polar Knight has HP on its power unit. The reactor, you do not want damage on your reactor. Very strange and niche scenario. You want skill effect range and skill duration up. The reason I have tech skill on mine is for Noise Surge. You can also go singular power if you want to do more damage with your pulsing ability on Noise Surge. All you have to do is build how you want. But I highly recommend the buff version of Luna. If you go into public and you run into another buff Luna, it's not my fault. Don't blame me. Do not blame me. It's not my fault. Happens to me all the time. Very sad. And me and buff Luna just look at each other while we circle jerk the party. If you want to watch me do this live, give your inputs and ask questions, my Twitch is in the description. I try to answer all the questions in chat, but as the community grows, that will become impossible. That was Luna. Comment on the Polsky hat. I was conned into my Twitch chat to buy it, and I did not know that you cannot dye helmets. It is what it is. Check out my channel if you like how I do stuff. Consider subscribing. See y'all later. Have a sick day. Peace out.